You're listening to the Allman Report on NewsTalkSTL.
I did not hear that, and I can't hear anything.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's I noticed that.
There now I can.
Wait, really?
Yeah, what you just did there. Now it's gone. Now it's there. Now it's there. Yeah, it's just a chord. It looks like.
That's weird.
Yeah, now I can hear everything well. I think it's just whatever that chord is. It might be just kind of a bum chord, but it's working now.
Hey, one more try. Now you can't?
Now I can't. Now I can.
Okay.
All right.
Cool. All right, then we're going to be good.
You want to reset your clock or?
Yeah. I'm going to hit that again then.
Okay, bud.
You're listening to the Allman Report on NewsTalkSTL.
Good evening and happy Monday to all of you. Yeah. It's going to be a good week. Tomorrow's going to be fantastic. We're going to be carrying the debate live here at News Talk STL 101.9 and 94.1. We're going to be carrying the debate live. I'll pop on after it's all over just for a little bit with Tony Colombo, and so we'll have a little special for you. But it's going to be a good week, and it's going to be a week of definition. It's going to be a week of laying it out there. My prediction is that after this debate is over, the election is over, and the Republican Party officially becomes the party of Donald J. Trump and should. And tonight, we're going to talk a little bit, we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into this Cheney family, Bush family betrayal of all of us that I do not think should be underestimated by any stretch of the imagination. So that's what we're going to be doing for a little bit at least. Jimmy Hoff, the Gateway Pundit, going to be joining me just a little later on. So I want to lay the groundwork really quickly about just what you and I are up against as individuals who support Make America Great Again, Donald J. Trump, and the Republican Party reinvigorated and indeed reincarnated in his image, and rightly so. So we have a couple of entities that are now fighting against us, and the most egregious, aside from the Bush-Cheney group, is the news media. And I realize that in some ways, and you guys know that this is almost in terms of how much I do it, which is cracking on the media and calling them out for this cabal they have created that is specifically designed to promote propaganda, which is specifically designed to demoralize you and me and make you think that this is a no-go. And when they're not trying to demoralize you with fake polls, although you did see the New York Times Senate poll, which was prominently displayed in the New York Times and indeed by the news media, but there's a bunch of different but, you know, all that kind of stuff. And you know what I'm talking about. That showed Donald Trump ahead. And it was very interesting because those numbers did not exist in 2020, and Donald Trump, in my opinion, beat Joe Biden, and they didn't exist in 2016 either. So Trump wasn't ahead in either one of those elections, 2016 or 2020. In fact, he was as much as 7 points behind in 2020 at this time, at that time. So the fact that he's ahead, even if it is by 1 point and the margin of error is such, it still is a big, big deal that he is as tight as he is in this, because normally they'll do whatever they can to kind of fake him being behind. I have no doubt that some of those polls were juiced in the past. This one, I think they still tried to juice it, but he came out ahead still. I mean, so the best laid plans, and I guess they can't fake it because they hired this firm to do it, and they can't just pretend it didn't exist. So that's a big deal going into this week. It's a huge deal that he is ahead when he has never been. 2016, he won significantly. 2020, he still, I believe, came behind, if you believe the vote totals, by only 45,000 votes on the planet. But still, it's significant. And so what's happening is the news media is starting to kind of flip out. So they're starting to join the Harris-Walz campaign in a higher profile way. One of the things that came out, and I know you guys don't care about Time Magazine, the Time Person of the Year and all. I mean, Time Magazine, really? So I had somebody the other day want to sell me a copy of the Time Magazine cover that had the fist in the air post attempted assassination photo, the iconic photo of Donald Trump. And I had no interest in buying that Time Magazine. I'm not going to frame a Time Magazine on my wall. Even if I do love the picture, I'm not going to frame a Time Magazine on my wall. First of all, I'm not 80. And secondly, I don't really, and no offense to you if you do frame it, I get it. But Time Magazine, come on. Time has decided they were going to, in their latest round, they put up a list, an influencers list. And this is the top 100 AI influencers. And Elon Musk was purposely left off of the top 100 AI influencers. If you asked a hobo on the street corner to name one of the top AI influencers, they would name Elon Musk. I'm just telling you. So the fact that they purposely left him off this list is only a matter of political revenge and of an attempt to kind of pretend he doesn't have the influence that he does. Because, of course, at this stage of the game, if you hear Donald Trump, he's saying absolutely that Elon Musk is going to be part of his cabinet or part of his administration in one form or another. I mean, we've got some pretty good rock stars, and I'll bring them to you later on as well. I mean, including RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, even for that matter, Tucker Carlson to a certain degree. I don't know what he would do, whatever, but nonetheless, he is an influencer. But so Time Magazine decides they're going to just simply leave Elon Musk off of the top 100 AI influencers list. And I guarantee you, I'm laughing because this is so stupid, but if you had to be asked, I mean, you couldn't name 100 other AI influencers on your list, could you? I'm not trying to diminish your knowledge and great intellect. All I'm saying is, like me, if they asked me to name a top AI influencer, I could only name Elon Musk. I have no other names on the list. And come on, Allman, it should be. I get it. You'll probably name them in the comments. I understand, but let's just face it. I mean, as learned and as voracious consumers of our brand and the brand of Make America Great Again that we are, and of our technological advancers and all those kinds of things, we still couldn't really name 5 top AI influencers, much less 100. So if you can imagine the task of purposely leaving Elon Musk off of a top 100 AI influencers list, I mean, you've got to really be trying super hard to keep him off the list. Like, you've got to scour the earth to find some puny little AI influencer somewhere in New Mexico or whatever to leave him off the list. You have to really work so hard to do that. But that's what the media is doing, because they absolutely cannot face reality. They want you to think the reality is one of demoralization, And they want to also attempt to change the reality. Over the weekend, you get Jonathan Karl. So Jonathan Karl is doing an interview with Tom Cotton. And Cotton is laying out all of the ideas that Karl has to step in and declare that Kamala Harris is actually really a moderate. She's not a radical. So the news media now is specifically campaigning to reimagine Kamala Harris. They don't even consider her to be an incumbent because they keep on positing this attempt to make her out to be the person who just dropped out of nowhere and wants change, when she actually is what we want to change from, because she is the incumbent vice president. She's part of the Biden-Harris administration. So the news media will attempt to pretend that she just wandered off a spaceship. And in this interview, Jonathan Karl, that convention, she's just a noob. She's a moderate now. You're out of your mind. Here it is. Here it is. Oh, I've got to turn down my speakers.
But the last thing that she said,
this was not a radical convention. I mean, she, as you heard me go through with Bernie Sanders, she is not taking the positions of the far left of her party. She's clearly making an effort to move to the middle.
Yeah, of course. She's a moderate now. And Karl even admits that he tried to run this propaganda garbage earlier with Bernie Sanders. So he's saying, well, as I talked to Bernie Sanders earlier, it's like, so this whole Sunday was a campaign for Jonathan Karl and indeed everybody else on the Sunday snoozer shows to help her reinvent her image. And now if you can imagine how unpissed these guys are in the media that she hasn't had a news conference in 45, 50 days since she announced. And yet you don't hear the media even complaining about it. She's purposely ignoring the same people who are promoting her. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason, first of all, that she's ignoring them, but also a reason that they're not mad about it because they're in collusion with each other. So they're not complaining that they can't ask her questions because they already have the answers that they have invented that will replace her voice, and they are her voice. So that's what the media is doing. To imagine that not one person in the mainstream media has bothered to complain in any way, shape, or form about the fact that she doesn't even respect them enough to talk to them. But I think this is a deal cut anyway. So of course they're not angry. Because she's like, why talk to you? Why do interviews with you if you are already on my side? Why rock the boat? Why even put myself in a situation? Because I'm already reliably depending on you to advance my story, which is exactly what they're doing. Another example is we have a study put together by my guys at the Media Research Center, otherwise known as Newsbusters. I love these guys. And they talked about ABC debate moderator David Muir and his newscast. And in the study that they just recently released, 100% of the Harris coverage, it's positive 100%, and 93% negative for Donald Trump. So if you could see that egregious imbalance, it's crazy. But another example of how the news media continues to just simply promote her campaign and get in the way of you and me from being able to advance the idea that she's a nut and her ideas are crazy. They don't want that to happen. And it's just going to get worse post-debate, because I believe this debate is going to be a bloodbath for Kamala Harris and a shining moment for Donald Trump. And of course, everybody's like, well, if he remains disciplined, I get it. And you saw him in the Biden debate. He was great in that one. I believe he's going to have a similar comportment in this particular debate. So it's only going to get worse. The propaganda is only going to get harder. You don't watch ABC's This Week anyway, so it doesn't really matter one way or the other. So at the same time, you have the news media that is promoting the Harris campaign. You also have former Republicans or Republicans like George W. Bush, Bush family, Cheney family, McCain family, and beyond, who are also actively campaigning for her. And this is more than just something that is aggravating. This is a deep, deep betrayal of all of us. And I am not angry. To me, it's not unforgivable, because nothing really truly is unforgivable. If we truly are the people we say we are, you can always forgive somebody, but that's irrelevant to the idea that they are acting in this way, period. And that doesn't change anything. But I am taking this deeply personally, and I believe you should too. I'll lay it out for you on the other side here. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL, and I want to make sure that you know that the Wallner home selling team is on your side if you are selling your home. There is no bad time to sell a home. Even if we are heading into winter time, it doesn't matter. A lot of people, well, don't show your home because it's winter time, it's snowing. It doesn't matter, because the Wallner home selling team, they absolutely have a unbelievable cache of individuals who are ready to go ahead and buy your home. So they cultivate all these people who are wanting to buy. They have no contract with you, so you can get out anytime you want to. Rodney and Jen are wonderful people, very involved in the community, and of course very involved in supporting free, common sense, conservative radio. So if you are looking for a choice of somebody to sell your home, licensed in both Missouri and Illinois, then you want to make sure you choose the Wallner home selling team, and make sure you go ahead and get them on your side. And they are absolutely, absolutely balls to the wall, just the best. The Wallner home selling team. And I will also tell you that when it comes to all the things they're going to do for you, the one thing that is important is that you don't have a contract. You don't have anything that's going to bind you to them. This is the phone number. It's 314-810-SOLD. That's 314-810-SOLD. The Wallner home selling team, proudly supporting the Allman Report here on News Talk STL. Good evening, everybody.
You're listening to the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
Good evening, everyone. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL 101.9 and 94.1. Yeah. Happy birthday to a dear friend of free, common sense, conservative radio and all productions, it seems. The great Phil Valencia. Ethan Valencia, you know, you were darn near born on your dad's birthday, you know.
Pretty close.
Oh, yeah. I hope you're having a wonderful evening, Phil. We are definitely glad you were born.
Me too.
Of course. So happy birthday to the great Phil Valencia. All right, so this was very interesting, and I love the fact that RFK Jr. and Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard, Tucker Carlson are all kind of, and Vivek Ramaswamy. So this happened over the weekend when RFK appeared with Tucker Carlson and Vivek. I'm glad to see Vivek kind of back in the stream. Really love that guy, and he was gone for a little while for some reason, and I'm sure that he has things to do and a family and everything else. And I remember going to Iowa, the Iowa caucuses last winter, and I took Natalie with me, my daughter, and we went around. We saw Nikki Haley in person. Natalie actually wasn't very impressed. I was just kind of trying to gauge her reaction. She's 16 years old. We went to see Vivek. We traveled like an hour to a city outside of Des Moines to see Vivek Ramaswamy at a bar. He was presenting at one of these little beer brewery barbecue places. And he was really cool and very engaging, and also very, very heavily focused on 1776 and the promise of our founding fathers. And that really engaged Natalie. To a lot. She understood exactly what he was talking about, since, thank God, she is taught such things in school. And so that was impressive to me, and I do believe Vivek Ramaswamy is going to play a hugely prominent role in the brand new, reimagined Republican Party that is the party of Donald Trump now, thank goodness. And I think it'll be great. But he was great. He was engaging. Cool guy, and so I gave him one of my shirts, the 1776 Forever Free shirt, because I figured he'd kind of like that. So I managed to get that to him. I don't think he's wearing it or anything, but you know, it had been worn and washed, but it had been worn. Anyway, RFK Jr. appears on the stage with Tucker Carlson and Vivek Ramaswamy, and this was very, very cool. Oh, by the way, so it was great to see these guys, you know, and I will tell you that the Tucker Live tour event is very cool. Aiden is hoping that it comes to a place near him in Arizona. And what's interesting about this, too, so Aiden, the other night, gets his picture taken with Carrie Lake at a Turning Point event in Arizona. He attended that because he goes to school at Arizona State University. So he went to the Turning Point presentation in Arizona and got his picture taken with Carrie Lake. Then he sent it to us, and I saw it, and I sent back a picture of Natalie with Carrie Lake. So, because she got her picture taken in Des Moines with Carrie Lake. And it was really cool to have two kids in a matter of 1 year get their picture taken with the great Carrie Lake. And, in fact, I also sent them the video of me talking to Carrie Lake at the CPAC convention in February. So, anyway, all in the family, right? So, here's RFK. And speaking of family, I believe there has been a significant family betrayal by the Bush family and the Cheney family that cannot be underestimated in its terribleness. I'll get to that in just a second. This is RFK Jr. Basically saying in no uncertain terms that the Republican Party has rightly transformed into the party of the common man.
I saw Kamala, at the convention, and she gave a speech that was very bellicose and belligerent. It was a kind of speech that was written by neocons and the CIA. The first time in history, they had a CIA former director speaking right before her, Leon Panetta. They had military people speaking at the Democratic convention. Democrats were the anti-war party. They were the pro-Constitution party. They were the party that was against Wall Street and representing the little guys, the cops, the firefighters, union and labor people. In the 2020 election, roughly 50% of the people in this country voted for Donald Trump. But that group that voted for Donald Trump represented 30% of the wealth in our country. The 50% of the people that voted for Joe Biden represented 70% of the wealth. There's been an inversion now where the Republican Party has become the party of the common man, of working people, of the middle class. And the Democratic Party has become the party of Wall Street, of the military-industrial complex, of big pharma, big agriculture, big tech, the big banking systems, and all of what Donald Trump calls the deep state, which is this web of financial interests that is not necessarily a little conspiracy, but it's a conspiracy of self-interest that functions together in tandem to shift wealth upward, to clamp down totalitarian controls, and to transform this country from the world's exemplary democracy into a corporate kleptocracy and a very, very oppressive oligarchical system, the kind of system that we fought a revolution to overthrow in 1776.
I love that he said that.
Bless you for saying that.
Yeah, I love that he said that, because I have said that repeatedly, that the current construct of our government is far more oppressive than the government we took up arms against to overthrow. This is not, for those of you taking notes, this is not Jamie Allman calling for an armed revolution against our government, but the facts are what they are. All those things that RFK Jr. listed as emblems now of the Democrat Party, the military-industrial complex, the deep state, Wall Street, big pharma, big agriculture, everything, are the very reasons why the Cheney family and the Bush family are now promoting Kamala Harris. It's not even as much of a hatred of Donald Trump as it is a love of what the Democrat Party stands for now. So don't miss this. Don't think that this idea that the Cheney and Bush family are voting for Kamala Harris, and even said they were, and indeed even the McCain family, don't miss this as simply just a butthurt reaction to the existence of Donald Trump. There indeed is a method to them supporting Kamala Harris, and all for those reasons that RFK just listed. Because Bush and Cheney and McCain, those all represented a Republican Party that was tied to the military-industrial complex, that was tied to big pharma, that was tied to Wall Street, big agriculture, and indeed even open borders. So these are individuals in the Bush and Cheney family who actually have switched parties, because the Democratic Party now is the Republican Party that Cheney and Bush once led. So don't underestimate the reasons why they are now supporting Kamala Harris. They are supporting Kamala Harris because she supports their ideals. Kamala Harris even said that she admires Dick Cheney. Now, the reason why I take this so personally as a betrayal is because of the years that I spent supporting them. And I know you feel the same way. Do not feel bad. I am full of regret for supporting them. I am full of regret for buying into what they were selling, even to the point where I was supportive of the Iraq War. My son, Ethan, served in the Iraq War. By the way, happy birthday to Ethan's daughter, Claire, and Julia's daughter, Claire, because Claire turns 1 today as well. So she shares a birthday with not only Phil Valencia, but your friend too, and mine, Julie Matthews. So you guys know all that. Anyway, so I again, when I talk about the Iraq War, I would never in a million years orphan all of our soldiers like they did in Vietnam. You've heard me discuss that before, so I don't really need to make any kind of rationalizations or anything for the statements I'm making. But we supported them. We went to bat for them. We fought for them. We fought to have them in power in the White House and beyond. McCain the same way. And so to have them betray us in this fashion is absolutely unacceptable and sad, but wow. It's like, gee whiz, it's like we're in, the Disney movie where the good guy suddenly turns into a villain. And that's exactly what they have done right in front of our face, to the point where now they're actively campaigning against Donald Trump, against Make America Great Again, against all the things that we hold near and dear. And they are now full on board with the Democrat Party, but they're full on board with it, not just because they don't like Trump, but because the Democrat Party now is the party that continues to make them money and continues to promote the policies that they promoted that wound up actually being semi-disastrous for our country, including, of course, this idea of free trade. Because you all know famously that Donald Trump came out of the blocks and said, this isn't free trade if it's not fair. And that began the unraveling of the Republican Party as we knew it, and the reinstitutionalizing of the Republican Party as we want it to be. So all of those policies in the past that we were supporters of, supposedly because Bush and Cheney told us it was right, they were all wrong. They were deceiving us. They were filling their pockets with war money, benefiting from the open borders and the abdication of supporting the borders. I remember famously that even when Bush was president, Clinton was harder on illegals than Bush was. And the more we realize that, we don't have to feel like chumps necessarily, although I kind of do. But it's not a pox on our personalities and our authenticity. It's a pox on theirs. And we have been just absolutely betrayed by these guys. And I resent it deeply. And I resent it even more because it's about all those policies that they want to have continued via the Democrat Party. And they want you to believe it's just because Trump isn't an adequate leader and Trump isn't a decent man and doesn't shine his shoes properly and all that kind of stuff. They want you to believe that it all is because they just don't like Donald Trump. No, they don't like you. They don't like what you stand for. They don't like what Donald Trump stands for. They don't like the party to start becoming the party of the common man, because now we're realizing they were never for the common man. They were never for you and me. They were always out for themselves and all of their cronies and all of their monetary supporters and all the people that made their life easier. On top of that, they, of course, don't have to care about things that we have to care about. They only have to care about their portfolios now. You and I have to care about grocery prices and gas prices and the fact that the open border is now affecting everybody, regardless of whether you're at a border. And so this is a betrayal that should not be underestimated and should not be glossed over. And it gives us even more of an incentive to make sure that Donald Trump is the victor in November, because once he is, it's hut burning time for all of them. It's time to go ahead and put them into ruin after all this. And I'm not a vengeful person. I'm just a simple person who understands that they are a cancer on this country. I don't believe Bush and Cheney are even patriotic. I do not believe that. And I'm not into calling people traitors, or I'm not here to judge somebody's patriotism, but since I'm on the radio here and you've come to my show for my opinion is that they are not patriotic. And they are not patriotic, not because they don't support Donald Trump, but they support things that RFK just laid out there that is more emblematic of a British crown than anything the founding fathers envisioned for this country. All right, coming up, this is crazy. The Swiss now are even angry at one of their politicians. They're finally realizing what happens when you infuse a bunch of radical Muslims in your world. And so is a black student group on a college campus realizing now what the Hamas supporters are all about, and they are out. So I'll bring that all to you right on the other side of this break. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL 101.9 and 94.1. Thank you for listening.
You're listening to the Allman Report on NewsTalkSTL.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side.
Good evening, everybody. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. I love this song. And speaking of break on through to the other side, that's exactly what we're doing under the leadership of Donald J. Trump. Amazing, really, what he has been able to accomplish in breaking on through to the other side. But that's not the only reason I'm playing you The Doors. Now, normally, I am not like a big... Like, parody songs sometimes can be... can be not so great, you know. They're cheesy and they're not so fantastic as far as I'm concerned. So I've never always been a big fan of parody songs. It's got to really be funny for me to love a parody song. This is funny. This. It's like, Allman, why are you laughing at your own joke already? I get it. I know. So that's like me, like some comedian doing a bit. You know, this is funny, but this is funny. So this is a WorldNet Daily bit here, right? So they're putting this out there on their Twitter page. And the headline is, Jim Morrison and the Doors just dropped their new comeback hit for 2024. Check it out.
You only say what is untrue. You are a master falsifier. When somebody fact checks you, like a chameleon, you change your attire. Kamala's a big fat liar. Kamala's a big fat liar. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
All right, so you got to admit that's a really funny thing. I think it's just because the funniest part of it is like, Kamala's a big fat liar. It's like, okay, that's funny. And I don't know, is this going to result in the Doors estate or something coming out and sending a cease and desist order on these guys? I don't know. I know Jim Morrison was an ultra cool dude and probably more of a libertarian. I mean, hell, he was only 26 when he died, or 27, I can't remember. But still, Morrison was a genius. And I'll never forget, there was an interview at one point that he did in the 60s, and it was right before the dawn of technology breakthroughs. As we all know, you know, Ray Manzarek, really perfected that electronic organ, everything else. But Morrison said on the record, he said, someday all of music is going to be basically electronic. There's going to be all kinds of things going on with it. And of course, in the ensuing couple of decades, it absolutely became that with overdubbing and all this kind of stuff and sampling and things like that. And Jim Morrison predicted that,
Joe Biden's condition is dire. Now the party turns to you. It's time to claim what you desire. Kamala's a big fat liar. Kamala's a big fat liar. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for that comic relief. This isn't so funny. As you all know, yesterday was the birthday of Mary, Mother of Jesus, September 8th. Commemorated in the Catholic Church, at least. And so to celebrate that event, a Swiss Muslim politician decided she was going to take a photo of herself shooting with a gun a picture of Mary and Jesus. So if you guys haven't believed this before, you need to believe it now, that radical Muslims are not just out to kind of take people's places and take seats in government and all that kind of stuff. They are in a holy war. And I know Muslims in the United States. I know Muslims here. And I don't believe that they hate Christians or they want to replace Christianity. But overseas, it's very, very prevalent, especially in some of these higher reaches of the European governments, like in Switzerland. I mean, you're seeing it even in Scotland, for crying out loud. And I don't understand, and of course in Britain as well. And the fact of the matter is, many of these people are aggressively anti-Christian. Now, she did apologize and did indeed even resign. But in the end, the act itself was enough of a message and enough of a revelation that there are many of these Muslims, they are hell-bent on eradicating Christianity. We're kind of in a reverse crusades now. And I'm not saying that we have to now do our own crusade. It's like Allman on his show called for an armed revolution of the government and a renewal of the crusade. It's like, no, I'm not. I don't want a war with the Muslims. But the reality is, this is real. This isn't just an act that came out of nowhere. This is a person who actually posted this picture because she felt like if she posted it, all her other fellow radical Muslims would absolutely love it. And indeed, even they did. So she didn't do this just for herself. She did this for all of the radical Muslims out there. You have even seen them in some protests and things like that in Europe, talking about how they were ultimately going to replace Europeans because there eventually wouldn't be enough Europeans to counter their presence in these countries. And indeed, that's happening, which is why when you have elections, believe me, it's not just dumb Scottish people who are voting radical Muslims into higher offices. It, in fact, is the fact that Muslims are citizens of this country after leaving other countries and now are a voting bloc, a significant one at that. And so they are, in fact, on a tear here. And they are, in fact, real. And this is, in fact, a real holy war. I will also tell you that this is significant here in this country as we see all these pro-Hamas protests all over the country. Students, many of them Muslim, but many of them just white American students who are dumb or trying to find a date, are joining these total anti-Israel, pro-Hamas demonstrations. But in Michigan, at the University of Michigan, members of the Black Student Union say that we're leaving this group that is a pro-Hamas. We're leaving this group because these people are treating us, trying to erase us, belittle, and berate us. The group also suggested there is a pervasive atmosphere of anti-blackness within this coalition, this pro-Hamas coalition, that is made up of over 90 student groups. So there's this big, gigantic consortium of student groups who are in this pro-Hamas coalition, and the Black Student Union says, we're not going to be part of this, because in the end, the same way with the Queers for Palestine, it's like, when are you going to realize that these people hate anybody who is not like them and doesn't support Hamas and doesn't support their efforts to kind of take over the world, so to speak? And they'll do it on the backs of white students and indeed even of black students, certainly of Jewish students. And so these people are suddenly realized, wow, these people are racists. And the Queers for Palestine, I'll never forget, there was one rally where the Queers for Palestine had their signs, and the marchers going by many of them Muslim, were flipping them off as they held the Queers for Palestine sign. So people are starting to learn what the pro-Hamas coalitions are all about. They're starting to learn a little bit about what these people are really thinking and what they really think about them. So that is a big moment. And the Black Student Union, I don't think this is the end of this across campuses all throughout the U.S., and that's good news. Also good news, the Gateway pundit, Jimmy Hoft, coming up on the Allman Report, News Talk STL. everyone, and happy Monday to all of you and yours. This is the Allman Report. Jamie Allman here with you on News Talk 101.9 and 94.1. And one of my great old friends, and he's a fabulous guy, great sense of humor, great journalist, great coverage of what's going on. The Gateway pundit, Jimmy Hoff, joining us right now. And Jimmy, welcome to the show, and thank you. Before we get to I want to hear what you think is going to happen at the debate. We all obviously don't know, but there's a story coming out of Springfield, Ohio. And these are the kind of stories that seem silly on their face, but they wind up being significant. What in the world is going on, man?
Yeah, this came out over the weekend, Jamie. It's just so insane. What has happened is our government has shipped in 20,000 Haitians to Springfield, Ohio. I don't know the exact population of this city. It's not one of the major cities in Ohio, but 20,000 Haitians is going to it's going to change the culture of the city, and it has. What they found is that this weekend there were several reports that these Haitians were taking ducks and walking through the streets with beheaded ducks that they were bringing home to cook. And there's even a story about how pet owners are afraid. This one family lost their cat. It disappeared. And the story goes that the cat was hanging from the neighbor's tree, a Haitian family, and they were using it for meat. This is it's a macabre kind of story, but this is what's happening. And the Springfield residents aren't happy about this at all, that they have to hide their pets now because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and this out of control immigration, open borders, and these Haitians, I think they were flying in actually to the city. So it's just unbelievable what these people are trying to do to our country.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about the Haitian diet, but do they eat cats in Haiti? I didn't know about that, because I mean that wouldn't be the first thing I thought of when I saw a cat was food, but I guess anything is food.
Right. And now today, if you go out on the social media, you'll see a lot of memes of Donald Trump, AI images of Donald Trump running with cats, saving cats and dogs and ducks from the migrants, and they're all supporting the cats and dogs are now supporting Trump. It's crazy, but it's it's just like, what has happened to our country? And who would think that this is a good idea, to do something like this? 20,000 Haitians in one community? Who would think that's a good idea?
Yeah,
I don't.
And they clearly drop them in there. And Springfield, Ohio is not a big city, and they drop them in there with obviously no resources, because they drop them in there. And if they're actually literally hunting for food, ducks, dogs, cats, you name it, they obviously don't have anybody feeding them. So I'm not saying they should be there to begin with, but I mean, if you are going to drop somebody in there at that level without a plan, that's terrible, but typical.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just this out of control open borders that Joe Biden and Kamala have had for 4 years. And it's I don't know how it's going to take a while for the country to recover from what they've done.
Yeah.
And who knows the reasoning behind it? It doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, and once they run out of ducks and cats to take, then they're going to start taking people's money. That's going to be the worst part, I fear. So robbing people,
Oh, there you go.
Jimmy, What are you hearing from, I know you're so plugged in, not only to the Trump campaign, but also to other people who are kind of watching what's going on and reading the tea leaves. How do you think tomorrow night is going to go?
I can't imagine that Kamala Harris is going to have a good evening. From what we've seen from Kamala, she's every bit as poor a candidate as Joe Biden. And she can't answer a question to save her life, it appears. When she's grilled on something, she freezes, then she starts giggling. I'm shocked, actually, Jamie. I thought that Kamala would probably be, somewhat impressive when she's in front of a camera, you know, as high at such a high level that she is. She's one of the worst candidates I've ever seen in my life. I just can't believe how bad she is. When, you know, she runs from cameras, she pretends like she's on the phone. Did you see those videos?
Yeah.
Where she has, you know, the earphones in and she's pretending like she's on the phone. It's crazy. So I think it should be a good night for Donald Trump, and I hope he brings up that, you know, the people she brought in are eating the neighbors' pets down the street.
I know.
You know, that would be a great line. But, you know, on every issue, Trump will win. Every issue. She will have the advantage of having her friend, who is the moderator, a longtime friend of hers. You know, this is what they do to us every election, Jamie. You know this. So that'll be a plus for Kamala. But I just don't know how she holds up against Donald Trump. And I hope that he absolutely destroys her, because what they've done to the country, they deserve to get every bit as much grief as they've given all of us.
Yeah. You know, that phone thing with Kamala is really interesting because, first of all, it belies common sense. So you get out of your beast and you have a 10-foot walk to the stairs of the plane. And what call is almost regularly so important that she has to have a call while the airplane engines are rolling, and she has to go up the steps when she's just feet away from stepping into a quiet airplane where she can make a phone call or take a phone call. So it just belies any credibility whatsoever. And regarding the debate, I think it's interesting. It's one of the reasons why she wanted unmuted mics is because she was planning on just spurting out one-liners. That's going to take her significantly out of her game to have muted mics.
Absolutely. I think that's, they said that she did well in the last debate. I don't remember it, against Mike Pence, I guess it would have been. And I don't remember that. I don't know. Mike Pence wasn't that impressive, but I don't know how she stands up against Trump. I just don't know how she can do it. And she'll have all the assistance she can get, though.
Yeah.
You know that. And she'll have all the spin. But we'll see how she does. If she might just have the same fate as Joe Biden and last one round and be taken out back.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
The next replacement.
Well, and I guess in the end, it's possible that these so-called journalists and David Muir, they just did a summary of the positive and negative coverage, and Trump's coverage is 93% negative on David Muir's newscast, 100% positive for Kamala Harris, 100% Kamala Harris positive. So hopefully, though, I sensed this in the last debate, that the people seem to be so on notice and so aware of the suspicions about their impartiality that they actually tended to cover for that and actually came out with some pretty good questions. So we'll see whether they will attempt to overcorrect or correct, and that could benefit Donald Trump too. So we'll see. I'm not quite sure they're that butthurt about the criticism, but you never know. We'll see.
Right. And you know, Jamie, one other thing, if she does fail and fall on her face, which I expect she will do, at least if they replace her, you won't feel that bad because nobody voted for her in the first place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She didn't have any primary votes, so can't feel too bad.
Yeah, right. I will tell you that I loved your coverage of the Black Student Union in Michigan. That story is very, very significant in that these groups are finally starting to figure out exactly what pro-Hamas demonstrators are really all about and really built like. And so the black students in Michigan said, no way, we're not in this anymore. This group, this coalition.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of blacks who are waking up in America this year like we've never seen. And I know you're seeing it also, Jamie. They know that today the Democrats have replaced them with the illegal migrants and who are flooding the country right now. And they're not the favorite group anymore. They're not the favorites of the left. The illegal immigrants are. And, I'm seeing a lot of signs that Trump is going to do much better with blacks. I think last election, I had heard from one source that he was polling about 10%, got 20% this year, the black men. This time he's polling at least 20%. He could get as much as 40% or more. I also know, Jamie, that in the next 2 months, there's going to be several rappers who are going to come out for Trump. And hopefully Gateway Pundit will be a part of this series of rap concerts where some of these major, not has-been rappers, but major rappers are coming out for Donald Trump in the next couple months. So that could be, something that could really help President Trump and hurt the Democrats.
Yeah, and I imagine the media's reaction to that will be to ignore it because there's no way they would have the audacity to try to criticize these rappers because we all know that's fraught with trouble for them.
Absolutely. I don't know how they'll react, but generally if they can't rebut it, they'll or mock it, they'll just ignore it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I noticed too, I saw that Time Magazine snubbed Elon Musk. They left him off of the top 100 AI influencers list. And as I said earlier, I couldn't even name one influencer except for Elon Musk. Like, how did they have to have worked so hard to come up with a list of 100 AI influencers? Because I couldn't name you 5, and then to keep him off the list is unbelievable to me.
Yeah, that really is, and it's such a snub and not really a surprise though, because Elon here he's been the most impressive man of the year, actually. The fact that he bought Twitter, he's made it a free speech outlet today. He knows and he preaches about how free speech is a necessity for a democracy, something that you never hear from the left anymore, because their type of democracy means, squashing free speech, putting the opposition in jail, bankrupting anyone who speaks out against them. So it's a shame, but that's who our media is. I think they continue to expose themselves, though, Jamie. Does anybody take these people seriously? I think more and more people are waking up to just how biased and toxic this leftist media is, and the rest of us just get roll our eyes, or else we just get more outraged at the lies, and they're being exposed every day.
All right, this is a crazy story, but I really love it, and I love the fact that you covered it. So, Saint Teresa of Avila, 5 centuries, her remains have been entombed or in a whatever it is, and crazily enough, you are reporting that the incorruptible, because that was the part of her sainthood, that her remains are absolutely in remarkable condition 5 centuries later, 500 years later.
Yeah, that's truly amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Jamie, we know about this in the Catholic Church. She isn't the first one they found like this. The first saint that they found like this. There's been several saints in the Catholic tradition that they found with incorruptible. Their bodies have been found that way. In fact, we're both from St. Louis, and there's a nun who passed away. I don't know if you saw this a year or two ago, and they were moving her casket and found out that her body was incorruptible. This is in western Missouri, and so I'll have to send you the article about this, but. It's an amazing story. And, another thing, talking about the Catholic faith, Jamie, Donald Trump yesterday on his Facebook page celebrated Nativity, which is the religious holiday in the Catholic Church where they celebrate the birth of Mary.
Yes.
And Donald Trump actually put that up on his Facebook page. That's something you don't see every day.
Yeah. While that Swiss politician put on her X account, her shooting a picture of Mary and Jesus to commemorate that day. Pretty unbelievable. Yeah, and it turns out that they were actually wanting to open up her tomb for research. They were going to do some research and some relic gathering and that kind of thing. And St. Teresa's face was perfectly preserved. Like they could see her face.
Amazing.
That is incredible.
Totally amazing. Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, I'm sure you're going to be covering the debate with bells on, and you folks, for any kind of real-life, common-sense, conservative coverage stories you're not going to hear anywhere else, you got to make sure that you hook up with the Gateway pundit, Jimmy Hoft, and his fantastic team of journalists there. So I'm always so happy that you can join me, and I appreciate you as always. Thank you, Jim Hoft.
Thanks so much, Jamie.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah, that is Jim Hoft, the Gateway pundit. All right, coming up, Jake Tapper and his Trump-hating boyfriend get together on his news show. This guy has a new book out, and first of all, you believe the title, but you won't believe the words coming out of their mouth. Coming up here on the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
You're listening to the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
Beer don't keep, love's not cheap, trucks don't wreck themselves. Mama ain't a shrink, daddy ain't a bank, and God ain't a wishing well. Money ain't rich, everybody sins, and nobody wins in a fight. And sometimes wrong is right.
Good evening, everybody. It is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. You know we're sticky everywhere. We're sticky on Facebook, on X. We're sticky on YouTube, on Truth Social. And so you can watch this show anytime. Talk to a few people out at the Billy Bush Family Brewery over the weekend. And a lot of you tend to just take this evening show and listen to it in the morning or the afternoon or whenever you can, because it's available as well on podcasts. And you, of course, can download that at NewsTalkSTL/Allman. All right. So you all are noticing now, an increase in the military activity related to attacks on Donald Trump. And these generals are all coming out of the woodwork, and suddenly there's this McCain element there regarding, his war heroism and the Arlington Cemetery thing. And of course, his son, as you will remember me talking about, his son, who is a veteran himself, and I appreciate his service in Iraq and Afghanistan, says he's voting for Kamala, and it's based on what happened in Arlington because President Trump was traipsing around Arlington National Cemetery, even though McCain's own dad in 1999 had an ad of him walking all throughout the graves. And this was in Arlington as he was running for president in 1999. These guys just don't care about what the truth is. They're total and complete hypocrites. And that's just is that. So we've got Jake Tapper interviewing Jeff Goldberg. And would you believe the title of this book? It is On Heroism, McCain, Milley, Mattis, and the cowardice of Donald Trump. Can you believe this? So now suddenly, of course, I know you've talked to people like this. You're left-wing idiots on Facebook or in your family or your friends or associates or whatever, and they suddenly are all like big-time military supporters. Oh, yeah, we support the military. And Mattis and Milley? And McCain, you mean the ones like Mattis and Milley who you called traitors back in the day because they worked for Donald Trump? Come on. And all these liberals are like, yeah, we're big supporters of the military and heroes and blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, come on. But that's what they're doing now. So Milley and Mattis, who were their sworn enemies back in the day, as was McCain, now suddenly happen to be their best friends. And war heroes, and they talk about all this stuff. This is unbelievable. The title of this book itself is offensive enough. So Tapper decides he's going to kind of flirt with this guy on his show over the weekend. Here's how it went.
He made a reference to senior flag officers, retired military, like Milley and Mattis, not to mention John Kelly, being pressured by Democrats to say something.
Right.
Why don't they?
Because it's almost holy writ in American military tradition. We have civilian control of the military. The military is apolitical. The generals listen to Democratic presidents and Republican presidents, and mixing with politics. The temptations are always there, and obviously many people who've served have run for office. That's fine, but there are people who want to follow these rules. And
yeah. John Kelly, Milley, and Mattis were all prolific leakers to their buddy journalists. So they might be in that situation. Well, oh, yeah, they just follow the rules because they're honorable individuals and they just follow the rules. That's what they're all about. They're rule followers. They respect the separation of civilian and military. They respect all that, unless, of course, they're anonymously leaking to the news media, which is what Milley and Mattis and to some degree even McCain did. Keep in mind, McCain was the one who also had his hands on the fake Steele dossier and knew about it and even promoted it. So, again, these guys, and John Kelly, of course, was a prolific leaker to the media as President Trump's chief of staff. I hope that ultimately, when President Trump wins in 2024, he has absolutely learned his lesson about being careful about the people around him, the people he gets around him. And that is a huge deal. He was totally undermined by these guys, trusted whoever his advisors were telling him to bring these guys into his circle, but they turned out to be traitors to him and betrayers of him. And again, not taking away from any of their service in the U.S. military, but this idea somehow that they're such honorable people that they would never cross the line and say anything publicly. You don't have to say anything publicly when you're cowardly leaking to the news media, which is exactly what these guys prolifically did.
So they are very hesitant. They also let it be known, obviously, through journalists and through other means, what happened inside the White House in Donald Trump's first term and how he treated the military. And
so that's interesting. So he acknowledges they're leaking while at the same time talking about their heroism and not speaking publicly. I'm trying to figure out, okay, so the fact that they don't go in front of a microphone is good and virtuous, but the fact that they leak is fine too and has nothing to do with actually going public, which is exactly what that is. When you're leaking, you're going public. So this guy's acknowledging that these guys all talk to journalists, so they are speaking out. I mean, look, you got to imagine how crazy it is, how fork-tongued these guys are. This Atlantic editor, Jeff Goldberg, and, of course, all these guys in the deep state who are claiming to be virtuous and claiming to be heroes themselves.
He thinks the military is there for. He's talked about my generals, which, of course, upsets them greatly. Yeah. They don't report. Generals in America don't report to the president. They work for the Constitution. He doesn't.
Okay. First of all, just because Donald Trump said my generals, that has been something that every single president has said before. President Trump saying my generals, it's not some kind of element of ownership of these guys. It doesn't violate the separation of civilian and military. And my generals is simply a colloquialism that has used by everybody. I mean, they meet with the president all the time. These guys do. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, all that kind of stuff. So the fact that Donald Trump uses the term my generals, how is it any different than any other president who has used the same term before? It's crazy.
That upsets them, but they're try to be very rigorous about not politicizing their role in society.
I think that's definitely part of it. I also think part of it, not for all of them, but for some of them, I'm not just talking about those three, I'm talking about others, is the death threats. Sure. Once they are perceived as being disloyal to Trump, and once Trump starts attacking them, death threats start happening, and they're quite often serious death threats.
Not really. And I will tell you, and of course I would never do that, and I know you wouldn't either. But if you wanted to threaten the life of John Kelly or threaten the life of General Milley or Mattis, would you even know where to find them to send a threat? Do you have an email address or whatever? And certainly no dope is going to put it on Twitter or anything like that. So this whole death threat thing is another thing that is simply made up. I don't doubt that there maybe have been some people who have managed to find out some place and send it to the Pentagon or do whatever. But the reality is this whole death threat thing is a bunch of garbage. And that's one of the elements of any kind of disingenuous, uncreative journalist and even politicians who say something really stupid or do something really stupid and then hide under the cover of these alleged death threats.
I would agree with you. I also think that, when you're talking about Milley, Mattis, Kelly, these are tough guys. These are combat veterans. I think that, yes, they
all have wives.
That's a factor in their lives, but I think what's holding them back is this fear of becoming too political. But you're right. They live in a climate of intimidation.
Yeah, they are political. They have been political animals for years under Trump. They have been leaking to journalists. They have been undermining the president, and even to the point of misrepresenting things the president has said. Mattis has been public about that before. And so what they do is they either veil their criticism through a concoction of a variety of different words here and there, or they absolutely positively leak to the journalists. So again, another example. And again, the name of this book, if you can believe it, and these are all coming out right around election time, right? And nobody reads these books. You have to understand that one of the things that is helpful is you come out with a book called On Heroism, McCain, Milley, Mattis, and the Cowardice of Donald Trump. And really, they've served their purpose in a matter of weeks because all they do is go on interview shows to cloying and hungry media and talk about this stuff. So no one really has to read the book. You're not going to go out. Even a left winger's not going to sit there and decide their autumn reading list is going to involve this book. They're not going to do this. And so the idea that somehow they are in this situation where they are actually writing a book for the purposes of advancing something that has any kind of credibility or virtuousness to it is ridiculous. All they do is go on these shows, like with Jake Tapper, and smear President Trump. All right, we will be back. Got a lightning round for you coming up to finalize this edition of the Allman Report. This is the Allman Report on News Talk 101.9 as well as 94.1. Want to make sure that you know that Grasser Electric is a proud sponsor of the Allman Report. Shane Grasser has been a longtime friend of mine, a great guy. Sean, who is one of his expert electricians, he's a residential electrician, comes out to my house frequently when I have things going on. Their service time and their service turnaround is immediate. You're not going to be doing this week out nonsense. They will act, and they also have 24-hour emergency service for you, so you are never in the dark or never without air conditioning or never without heat for very long if somehow electrical problems make that happen or what have you. So they will be able to help you with that as well. They are also great in the commercial electrical work as well. So if you are building an addition to your home, or you are building your business, or you are needing to rewire your business, whatever it happens to be, Grasser Electric, longtime supporters of free, common sense, conservative radio, will be there for you. Thank you, Shane and the team, for supporting the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
You're listening to the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
evening, everybody. This is the Allman Report on NewsTalkSTL. Thank you very much for joining me. And listen, I understand why some people misspell things. I get it. And misspelling sometimes, and again, I'm not a nitpicky, pedantic. I'm not a pearl clutcher about it. But sometimes misspelling is a sign. And you didn't care to check. And it's also a sign of a level of self-absorption to the point where you just assume you know how to spell it, so you're going ahead and do it, regardless of whether or not it's right or not. I understand some people don't know it's wrong, and they do it anyway, but I get it. But sometimes, it's really a weird look. So I told you a while back when Kamala Harris issued a tweet, and she talked about common sense gun legislation or whatever it happens to be. And she made common sense one word, which it's not. And it wasn't like it was a typo or something and the words were just smushed together. She had a capital C and common sense after that. So it wasn't like it was just kind of, smushed together. It was a misspelling. It was not as much a misspelling as it was this assumption that common sense is one word, which is really bizarre to me, considering how I coined the phrase common sense radio, so I've seen it a lot. But it's not one word. It never has been. It's not a level of style or whatever else. It's not about all that. It's not just like, it's kind of when people talk about nuclear versus nuclear. It's not an accent. It's whatever. There is no extra U in there. And so it's just not a matter of style. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Anyway, this is incredible. So Kamala Harris went public with her agenda, and she added an issues page to her official campaign website. And it's all Bidenomics stuff. It's nothing new. It's nothing that is reminiscent of any kind of the change she's talking about, whatever. It's just more of the same. It includes a reference to price gouging. And economists all across the country have dismissed the element of price gouging in our problems with that we're having with all of the prices of food and everything else. And so gouging is not an element. It's not part of it. The profit margins of grocery stores are amazingly and incredibly thin. So their terminology, though, is one thing. So listen to this really quickly.
And I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food.
So it's not only not right. There's no such thing as price gauging, unless, of course, you are gauging prices. But it's not price gouging. And so she doesn't even know how to say it, much less spell gouging. So somewhere along the line on her teleprompter or whatever, it must have said gauging. And so they didn't know how to spell gouging, and so it came out of her mouth because she's a robot and as price gauging.
And I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food.
I mean, she didn't even correct it, and she's so stupid. And I'm sorry, because I don't want to be gratuitous and mean. I think sometimes calling someone stupid is too easy and childish, but I'm not above that. I'm not above being 15, but I'm telling you, in all due respect, Kamala Harris is dumb as a bag of hair. And like, for instance, when Hillary was running, I don't think Hillary Clinton is dumb. I definitely have never used that terminology to describe Hillary Clinton. So when it comes to a lot of these people in the female reaches of politics, I reserve calling them stupid and dumb as a bag of hair for only the stupid and the dumb as a bag of hair. So I never really gratuitously just called Hillary Clinton dumb, because it's one thing Hillary Clinton is not, is dumb. So anyway, she, on the larger issue, she's directed her administration, she says, that she will do this to crack down on anti-competitive practices that led big corporations jack up prices and undermine the competition that allows all businesses to thrive while keeping prices low for consumers. You notice she's focusing on a box of tricks or a gallon of milk here and thinks that's gouging. Where you really find gouging, where you really find the artificial inflation of prices, is in pharmaceuticals. And that's one thing that Kamala Harris and her team never really address. They do address the high costs of pharmaceuticals, but they never call that price gouging. They never call that taking advantage of consumers or anything of that nature. They never call that price gouging. And if there's one element of gouging that is going on in our economy, it sure as heck is with our pharmaceuticals. So this is all just a mess. She thinks that she's going to bring the government in to police prices at your grocery store, and it's absolutely not going to work in any way, shape, or form. All right, here's another one. This is another article, and you know what I say about propaganda and how propaganda is designed, in many cases, to not only influence people, but demoralize them. So this is a article that I knew was coming because I've talked about this before. The headline is, pro-lifers are politically homeless. Listen to what they have to say here in this article, and you will see that they're trying to demoralize you who are pro-life and who know in your heart that Donald Trump is the most pro-life Republican that we have had in politics in decades, if not ever. Because Donald Trump was the one who now, first of all, fought and worked his butt off to win an election in 2016 and gave us 3 conservative justices who wound up overturning Roe versus Wade, which is something that Republicans only talked about but never actually achieved until Donald Trump, who now apparently isn't a good enough Republican and now apparently is also not a good enough pro-lifer. But that's a lie. Anyway, listen to this. Former President Donald Trump no longer has a convincing case for why pro-lifers should vote for him. Can you believe that? Now, if that's not an attempt to demoralize you through propaganda, I don't know what is. They continue. Roe has fallen. What else could pro-life voters gain by continuing to support the GOP? Well, because of the accomplishments of President Trump and because President Trump gave us that gift that pro-lifers have always been wanting. And that is the repeal of Roe versus Wade, back to the states where it belongs. And now, of course, you have 2 people who are trying to propagandize and demoralize. One would be the journalists who are running this rap that somehow President Trump isn't pro-life enough and pro-lifers no longer have a political place to call home, which is a complete lie. But then you also have some Republicans who are purposely interfering with our elections by calling on a federal ban on abortion, which is something we don't want to go back to, especially when you're talking about it to the point where that is only going to attract Democrat voters like bees to honey at the polls. It just doesn't make any sense at all. Also worth noting, people, the movie Reagan scores 3rd place in its 2nd weekend. This is amazing considering you have already seen some of the Hollywood journalists who are acting like Reagan is not living up to its expectations, that people don't want to see the movie and everything else. So I'll roll it down here. So first of all, obviously, Beetlejuice came out, and the box office score over the weekend was like $110 million. So, I mean, obviously, there are a lot more people seeing Beetlejuice than Reagan. But listen to this. When it comes to the rankings, you have Deadpool and Wolverine at about 7.5 million, and you have Reagan at 5 million. So my buddy Ed Morrissey over at Hot Air points out this, worth noting, especially given the competition this weekend. These are all estimates, but there are enough space between third and fourth that the rankings are probably solid. Reagan only lost 32% from its opening weekend, a decent result, far better than the minus 70% a fellow second weeker, Afraid, which finished 12th. Disney's Alien Romulus lost 57% from the previous weekend. And so Reagan has now made more than $18.5 million at the box office on an estimated budget of $25 million. So, you're getting $18 million back. Your budget is $25. You've only been in the theaters for 3 weeks now, and you're surely going to have a couple more $2 million, $3 million weekends, and it's really going to be crazy in the end here because Reagan will probably end up making money. And again, the people who are seeing Reagan are probably people above the age of 50 to some degree, but there are plenty of young people, my son, Aiden included, who is at ASU, they're all seeing the movie. The college campus kids, at least the conservative kids, are all going to see the movie because they know who Ronald Reagan is. In fact, back in the day when Aiden was younger and 15 in his teens, a younger teenager, I took him out to California and got him involved in Young America's Foundation, and we went to the Reagan Ranch, and there were thousands of kids who showed up from all over the country going out to the Reagan Ranch. If you've never been out there, and I think you have to have some kind of special guide, or you have to be involved in some organization to get out there. If you've never seen the Reagan Ranch, it is really pretty amazing. And one of the most amazing things about the Reagan Ranch is that it's small. It's smaller than it looks. It looks like some little home out in Forestell. You know what I mean? It's really kind of crazy. You'd think the Reagan Ranch was this big, expansive, incredible place. And it is an incredible place, but it's very, very quaint. You walk in to the house, and it is no different. It's like you're going to grandma's house, her grandma's little bungalow. It's pretty amazing. It reminds me of of Graceland. And Ethan, have you ever been to Graceland before?
No, sir.
You got to go someday.
Where's that at?
In Memphis. Yeah, it's Elvis's place. And if the first time that I toured Graceland, it was also the last time, I was pretty amazed because it of course, is the Graceland mansion, right? But you go there, and it's not unlike some home in Olivet. It's it's one story, first of all. It's a ranch style mansion, if you can call. If there's anything that is ranch style that could be a mansion, I guess that would be the Reagan house too, because there's only one floor to it. I think they had a basement, but still, Graceland was so much smaller than I thought it would be, considering how you've heard about it and you've seen the pictures of it and everything else. It just was like, wow. But nonetheless, it still was Elvis's home. And nonetheless, this still was Reagan's ranch. And so the power of it certainly and the mystique surrounding it certainly exceeds the actual physical characteristics of it. And the one thing I wanted to get, which I still can't figure out why it was something I wanted to get, I sometimes am really, really weird. But when you go to Graceland, they have tours that are audio tours in all languages from around the world. And for some reason, I had a Jones for getting the Japanese cassette tape of the tour of Graceland. I wanted to hear the tour of Graceland in Japanese, or at least have it. And I tried to con this guy who worked there into giving me the cassette tape. And of course he wouldn't do it. And then in hindsight, I'm thinking, well, that was really dumb and useless and frivolous. and I'm surprised the guy didn't laugh at me, but I think he probably is still telling the story about that one rube who came in. And yeah, he wanted a cassette tape of the tour in Japanese. Can you believe that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I make a fool of myself pretty much everywhere I go, on purpose sometimes. All right, Ethan Valencia, thank you so much for everything. Happy birthday to your dad, Phil. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your night. We're live tomorrow for the debate.